I have a picture here of a man in his house speaking with his wife. And he says, "I'm the man of this house, so starting tomorrow, I want you to have a hot, delicious meal ready for me the second I walk through the door. Afterwards, while watching the CBC and relaxing in my chair, you will bring me my slippers and then run my bath. And when I'm done with my bath, guess who's going to dress me and comb my hair?" And you know what she said? The funeral director. The funeral director. Don't ask for too much. Zacchaeus did ask for an awful lot in his life. The little passage from Luke's Gospel that Bob read to you a few moments ago. Zacchaeus was a rich man. Zacchaeus was a tax collector. Zacchaeus had defrauded people over many years. He was one of the hated people that tends to float around in society in that day because he was a tax collector. Maybe we have some of the same opinion of these people today too, is they hated tax collector because in his day they could extort money from people in any way they wanted, and they were usually pretty rich people. But Zacchaeus, as he was very wealthy, I think began to understand that life was not adding up the way that he thought it would. I mean, it doesn't take us a moment to think of the movie stars and the people that have ruined their lives, and yet they seem to have had a tremendous amount of money and resources at their disposal. Well, that's because, of course, you and I know that life entails and requires and has a lot more to it than just the accumulation of wealth or the availability of the resources necessary to carry on. So Zacchaeus realized this. And Zacchaeus then climbed a sycamore tree. I'm not exactly sure why he picked a sycamore tree, probably because it was a strong enough tree to hold him. And he was a small man, so whenever Jesus was around, there was always a crowd around him. And if you're short, you can't see him. So he has to get up above everybody else to see him. And sometimes we have to get above our circumstances to see the bigger picture of what God is trying to do for us, with us, and in us, and through us. So Zacchaeus climbs this sycamore tree, and interestingly, because the Lord can read thoughts, God reads our minds, Satan can't, but God can, then he sees Zacchaeus up in this sycamore tree, and he points to him and he says, "Zacchaeus, Janet, Dave, Mary, Betty, I want to come to your house today. Fred, I want to come to your house today. Ron, at the back there. I haven't forgotten you back there." Good. Well, we pick on you on Wednesday night, but I won't pick on you today. So Jesus says, "Zacchaeus, I want to come to your house today." He says that to every single one of us. Because I think in coming into church here, coming into this place, we realize there's something more in life to see. There's something more in life than just what presents itself to us. There's something more that we realize that God has in store for us, and we're going to try and get at it. But the first thing we need to do is at least find Jesus in the crowd. I mean, sometimes we have to pick him out amongst a lot of other rabble that's around him. So Zacchaeus has got a pretty good idea. Let's get an overview, a picture of this big crowd. And I want to try and give you a bit of a picture of how God works some of our dreams and understandings, how he gives us a new kind of wealth. Not the kind of wealth that Zacchaeus had, or that we might get at the casino, that we have to pay 10% on, but the kind of wealth that Zacchaeus was really looking for. So Jesus says, Zacchaeus, I want to come to your house today. And when he comes down out of the tree and when he starts going off to his house, there's a bunch of other people around that start bellyaching, complaining, and whining, because Jesus, this holy man, has gone into the house of somebody who they think doesn't really deserve it. And yet, Jesus sees us all as we really are. Jesus sees us as people who are reaching out. He knows who's reaching out and who's looking for something more in life. Because when he detects that, it's like a magnet. He just comes over because he wants to fill the gap. He wants to help us out because he's there for us. He's everywhere all the time. Anytime we begin to reach out in those milliseconds in the middle of the night when we feel kind of a despair about life, about where we're going and what we're doing and what the future may or may not hold for us, Jesus is there ready to be asked. Jesus is there ready to give because he's a God of love and compassion. He's a God that really does want to help us. And so Jesus saw this in Zacchaeus. He didn't pick anybody out of the rabble that was around him, but there were other people that started bellyaching about Jesus, the holy man, going into Zacchaeus' home. There's always people around that will complain about what Jesus is doing. Always be aware of that. There is always people around that when the Lord is at work, they're not going to like it because they see in you something that they want and they can't get it through any easy means. They have to actually entertain Jesus. Entertain him in their own home, in their own heart. They actually have to let him in to the door. Do you know that famous painting that I've forgotten the artist's name. Maybe somebody can remind me afterwards. I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and lets me in, I'll come in with him and sup with him. And if you look at that picture, there's no door handle on the outside because the door has to be opened from the inside. And that's what we do. Jesus invites himself over to Zacchaeus' house, but Zacchaeus has to let him in the door. So Zacchaeus and all the sinners inside let him in. And something happens inside that house. There's something about Jesus when he just gets in there. There's something about him when his presence comes into our presence, truly in our hearts. There's something that starts to happen in us, and it changes us back to the type of people that he really wants us to be, simply because we have reached out to him. Simply because we have said, there's got to be more than what's going on now. There's got to be something more to all of this than just what I can do by myself. There's got to be something more. And something happens to Zacchaeus in his own home, in his own body, in your own body, in your own home, in your heart, in your own feelings, in your own mind, in the illuminations that are given to you. Something profound happens because Jesus has shown up on the spot. And what has happened to Zacchaeus is what you might not expect. He starts to give things away. He says, I'm going to give to the poor, and if I've cheated anybody, which he knew he had, and if anybody could come to him and remember how much they cheated him from, he'd repay them 4 times over. So by giving, he was actually getting. And the more he gave, then the wealthier he became. And he knew it. He was let in on the secret because he had let Jesus into his heart. The secret of the new wealth was not to keep accumulating for yourself, but it was to give into the cause of Christ. It was to make sure that it was a money thing. It started with Zacchaeus because he had a lot of rotten things in his life to get cleaned up, and they all involved money. But if you don't have any money, then what else do you give? You give of your time, you give of your talent. Time, talent, and treasure type of thing. But the time and talent are 2/3. And we all have the same amount of time. We've all got the 24 hours in the day, and we all have something to give of our talent because we're all still living and breathing and walking around in this world. So we do. We can give something more than just money. Conversion changes. Zacchaeus became pious. He now called Jesus Lord, it says in the scripture. He became generous. Half of my goods I give to the poor. That's where it started. He became compassionate. Well, because he did give to the poor. And he became honest. If I've taken anything from any man by false accusation, I restore him fourfold. It's funny, isn't it, how Jesus changes us? It's different, isn't it? By giving, you actually receive far more than you ever expected. By getting involved in Jesus, something happens to us that makes a profound change in us. Zacchaeus, 15 minutes after Jesus got into his home, was not the same person who climbed the sycamore tree. Something profound happened. And this is what I want to summarize for you. What did happen to Zacchaeus? What really did happen to him? The first thing is Zacchaeus had a bunch of dreams. He wanted to get rich. How many here want to get rich? Everybody. We need riches. Okay? Zacchaeus wanted to get rich. Well, he got rich. Is there any other great dreams that anybody would like to share? You know, great travels around the world, maybe? Anybody want that one? Yeah, my wife, yeah. Travel to Australia, I know. God gives us great dreams. He gives us things, doesn't he? But what happened to Zacchaeus, and what happens to many of these dreams? We become disillusioned by them, don't we? When reality and the dream don't kind of add up. All of a sudden, the house of cards falls apart, right? I mean, when I asked many of the people at the Not Church service on Wednesday night, what are your dreams? I got quite a response. They all had, most of them piped up and they had dreams, but they were short-term dreams. Like, I'm glad I'm waking up in the morning. Well, that's pretty good. Or, I'm thankful for the next meal, which we were giving them. There were short-term things. But there's short-term and there's long-term dreams. So everybody's got something good that they can dream about. But very often, these dreams, we become disillusioned by these dreams because the darn things don't seem to work out. We seem to lack resources. We don't seem to be in the right place at the right time. There's something rotten happens in this life that doesn't make the dreams that we would imagine come through. You know, tougher things, happy marriages, marriages at all, wealth, life working out for children and grandchildren, equitability within the world, where there's people that are well fed and everywhere, or people that don't have to work in dangerous buildings like Bangladesh to make the shirts that we wear, stuff like that. But these dreams become disillusioned because something happens in them. And what happens is this: they must die. They have to die. Those dreams that God gives have to die. Because it's only when those dreams actually die that God has given to us that we can let Jesus into our life. And when he comes in, then other things start to change. We're converted as such, if we want to use a technical term. But he starts to do something else with them, and the dream the vision comes forth as it should because of his power, and a new kind of wealth is given to us. I believe every one of you have had that kind of experience, and that's why you're here today, to help fulfill those experiences and have this experience of death and resurrection as such, like Jesus going to the cross, occur in other aspects and areas of your minds and hearts and other areas of your life and in the life of this church. Sometimes things have to die before Jesus can really get into it and remake the vision, give us a new deal, the way that it was really meant to be. Last Wednesday morning, at Old Dark 100, I was at the Mayor's Prayer Breakfast, and I met Nick Wallenda, the fellow who walked across Niagara Falls here a little while ago. There's an article on him in this week's Niagara Falls Review. There's a picture of him on page 3 here with the mayor. Because I was forced to sit at the head table, I got to meet him, but there he is there. You can take a look at your review from last Thursday, the 31st. And Nick, it was very interesting because I was just like 10 feet away from him as he was giving his presentation. And I'll tell you a couple of things about him. He was extremely sincere. You could sense that this man had God in his life, and you know that he prayed all the way across and gave God the glory, and he knelt in prayer out in the middle of the falls out there on the high wire. He did all those things, but it wasn't a show. He said himself, "I'm not Hollywood. This is not a Hollywood show." And he was really sincere about it. And I went up to him after the presentation, shook his hand and spoke with him about a couple of little things, and he looked me in the face, and I could see this man is 100% sincere in what he's doing and what he's saying and how he is trying to uphold God in his life. Well, one of the dreams that he had to die before it came to life, and the death was with the Parks Commission. Ed, you'll like this story, is on the American side, he was advised by about 10 lawyers hanging around him, and the mayor of Niagara Falls, New York, is not to sign off on letting him walk across the falls at any point, because there's laws in place where you can't do these things. And the governor the mayor leaned over to the governor, and he said, "Don't worry about signing it off. He'll never get by. The Canadians will never pass it." Well, he did go on to describe that the Canadians overturned about 100 or 150-year parks law and did sign off on it, and it looked pretty tenuous, like all the time until the 2 parks commissions signed off. So his dream had to die and be put in the hands of other people until it was revived and came to life. So there's something about having a dream given, being disillusioned by it, allowing it to die, allowing Jesus to do something with the whole thing, and then having it come back under his power in a different way, but actually to have it fulfilled in his way. Now, we call part of the process conversion, but if we're really going to have dreams fulfilled, then Jesus has to be in it. And the more he's in it, the wealthier we will get. And we do get really wealthy with Jesus, because he will supply us everything that we need in order to accomplish his mission. And each of us has a special mission in life Each of us has been given a special dream and a special commission in life to go through life, but with Jesus. That's why you're here. The people outside, they don't know that. They don't know what you know. But you know that if Jesus is in it, he changes things. And somehow he changed Zacchaeus, and he started giving, and he found out the new wealth. He gave money, yes, to begin with. He gave away a great deal of his possessions to begin with. But he found out what real life was about, and it wasn't what he expected. He didn't expect to lose everything that he had, and I don't think he did. God just pared him down to size a little bit. He had far more than he ever needed. But God said, you're not going to need all of that. But there's others out there that do. And Zacchaeus was a changed man because Jesus showed up in his life in a deeper and more profound way. And I believe that's what you and I are looking for here. We are looking for a move of Jesus in our lives in a deeper and more profound way than he's ever done before. Because life should get better and better and better the closer we reach glory than getting worse and worse and worse, or more and more hopeless. God is a God of hope. Faith, hope, and love, he says. These things endure, but the greatest of these is love. And Jesus loved us first. Because when he died on the cross, all of his plans and dreams for a better world ended. Everything that he wanted in life for our betterment ended on the cross. And he even said, God, why have you forsaken me? I mean, I was just getting going with some of these plans. The Reformation of Judaism was just beginning. People were getting upset because they didn't want to change. But God, now it's all ending. And God said, I have control. But God didn't even answer him. He was silent. And that's what you'll get when there's a death to your ideas and my ideas. And then they stuck around for 3 days. And after 3 days, the world has never been the same since because of the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And that is your heritage and mine. The world has never been the same because one man's dreams had to go to the cross and die. And when those dreams died, it changed all of us forever. And it changed all eternity forever and gave us a hope of going to a kingdom that we can't even begin to imagine at this particular point in time. And that kingdom is prepared for you. For you. For you, Nicole. For you. For you, Marion. Roger? Velma? Yeah. For you too. Dave? Janet? Bob? New people? Vera? Prepared for you. God often births a vision in our lives only to allow it to die first before the purest version of the vision is manifested. This has happened several times in my own journey. Oswald Chambers observes, God's method always seems to be vision first, or a dream, and then reality. But in between the vision and the reality, there is often a deep valley of humiliation. How often has a faithful soul been plunged into a like darkness when after the vision comes the test? When God gives a vision and darkness follows, waiting on God will bring you into accordance with the vision he has given if you await his timing. Otherwise, you try to do away with the supernatural in God's undertakings. Never try to help God fulfill his word. When God's vision is finally birthed, nothing will stop it. Our job is to allow God to birth his vision through us, his way, and in his timing. Dream, disillusionment, death, new design, fulfillment of vision. Amen.